WTMJ Cares Salute to Service. This is our final presentation today. All through the month of May, we've told you incredible stories. We actually let the men and women in public safety tell you their stories in their own voices. Life-saving, just heroism, courage, bravery, compassion, all the elements that I know that the men and women who work in public safety share every day. They don't walk away from it. They may say they can, but this is a consuming job, and I think today's example will show you it's not just the work they do while they're punched in and on the clock. It's the work they do outside of that. They don't lose the skills and the training they have when they go on vacation, and we'll tell you that story in a second. But a lot of people have asked, why WTMJ Cares Salute to Service? Why have you chosen that? And part of it's my story. What happened to me in Oak Creek in 2012, I got to see firsthand the incredible work that was done by men and women in law enforcement, fire safety, emergency medical responders, dispatchers in that story as well. Just the incredible work they did. And I took away from that wanting to appreciate that more and to tell that story. That's why I chose public safety as my WTMJ Cares Salute to Service. And thanks to the folks at First Bank Financial Center for allowing me to do that. Incredible bravery and compassion, as I said. We've seen some of that erode over the last few years, and I think that needs to change. And the incredible sacrifices, we'll hear one story today, personal and professional, I think requires all of us to make a commitment to understand that these people deserve our respect and appreciation because of the work they do. They risk their lives every day, 24/7, 365, on or off duty. And I think by recognizing and rewarding them, we can move the dialogue forward and hopefully maybe improve the relationship between citizen and public safety professional. Today's story is an incredible story. And when I first talked to Jeff Cavett, West Allis firefighter, I knew that I wanted to wrap our series with this story. And it's one that it involves somebody thinking beyond himself, but taking all the skills, all the professionalism of his job as a firefighter on a beach in Michigan one day.
We were having a lot of fun. It was a beautiful day. It was warm and sunny.
It was hot enough outside, probably in the 90s, so we just started enjoying the swim with the kids.
There were a lot of kids in the water, a lot of kids on flotation devices and things. We started noticing the waves were getting a little bit bigger.
As I was out about waist deep to chest deep water, a child screamed one time, and I see a kid go under. I dove underneath the water and came up underneath him and picked him up high enough to get him relief from the waves.
He was kind of crying a little bit. His mom went over to him, just thanked Jeff for bringing him in.
And I look over and I hear two little ones kind of yelling and screaming for each other. Then I hear the little girl scream, "Mama."
Jeff ran out to them, picked them up, one in each arm, and brought them back to shore. At
that point, I was actually getting kind of tired.
And then my sister-in-law, she pointed out a boy who was on a boogie board, and he started going way out. And she said, "Oh my gosh, look at that boy out there. He's getting pretty far out there."
And I hear a scream, "Somebody has to help my nephew."
Before I even could say anything to Jeff, he jumped up, ran into the water. All I see is the back of him.
It almost was automatic, like the tones going off at the firehouse. Swam about 100 feet out to the buoy.
I see him out there with the child, and I thought, okay, he's going to bring him back in, not a problem. Jeff's a strong swimmer. He can do this.
And I put the kid back on his boogie board. He was under enough times. So I calmed him down, and then I went to touch the ground, and it wasn't there. And I then realized that I was in really deep and realized at that point I can't be a victim to the rescue.
After it felt like an eternity, I'm watching them, and I'm saying to myself, come back, what are you doing? Come back.
And I couldn't touch that ground. I looked back to the beach and I thought, I may not come back from this.
And then I see Jeff's hand waving in the air as they're still out by the buoy, and my heart just sunk. 3 or 4 scenarios went through my mind, and the first one was stand on the ground, hold the child above the water, and just walk towards the beachhead. So I did that. Probably held my breath 20, 30, 40 seconds, just walking him in as far as I could. But by the time I came back to the surface, he was back off my hands, and we were even deeper than we first started. I just started yelling to some people that were nearby, call 911, I think they're stuck out there. I then stayed with the nephew, put him back on his boogie board, and in between every valley of the waves, I crossed the waves in the valley, and I crossed backward on my back and backstroked him in, pushing him every other stroke above each one of the waves, and finally made my way to the point where I saw my son, and my son yells, "Dad," and I had my son pull me in. When you've given
absolutely every ounce of everything you have left, and you may have died doing it, it truly is humbling, and it's truly life-changing.
He is an amazing man. He is a giver. He is always there when somebody needs help. He springs to action the minute he hears the word help. He is always willing to give of himself, no matter the circumstance and no matter the person.
That absolutely incredible story. Joining us in studio, firefighter, West Allis firefighter Jeff Cavett and his wife Beth, and his kids Ben, Cameron, and Miranda. And Miranda is a smart girl. I would be surprised if she didn't jump on a microphone because she wants to talk as well. Listening to that, I get emotional when I hear you tell that story about that day on the beach. And this is a vacation for you.
Yeah.
You're up at a beach in Michigan. Walk us through that. The conditions didn't start as dicey as they ended up being.
No, it was a beautiful day. The sun was out early that day. It rained the day before, so we waited for the sand to dry up a little bit. So it was about 11 o'clock, maybe 10:30, and we got down to the beach. The waves were actually kind of too calm. I thought, oh, the kids aren't going to have a whole lot of fun just lapping around in this what looks like a wading pool for a while. So we just thought we'd enjoy the sun, the heat, and dip our toes in the lake for a little while.
And then something happened. Something changed in the conditions.
Yeah, it wasn't within an hour that the waves started getting a little stronger. We actually enjoyed the time jumping around. We're at knee height and waist height water, but the waves are coming up a good 1.5 to 2 feet at that time. About where we were. So started getting a little concerned about the safety of my daughter because she's not as tall as my two boys. And so we kept her kind of between me and the boys, and they were kind of my barrier for the depth at which I felt comfortable putting the kids in. My two nieces were with us as well, and they're all strong swimmers, but the waves did start kind of taking a toll on everyone. We all kind of took turns walking in and out of the shore. I took a little bit of break here and there. But one of the times I was out there and I saw that child behind my son was the time when I all of a sudden realized that things were getting a little dicey.
And Jeff Cavett joining us, firefighter from West Allis. And you mentioned that at some point something switches. This is no longer a fun day at the beach. This is a more serious situation.
Right. It started getting a little bit stronger. The wind picked up quite a bit. And the child that was behind my son, who's a little over 6 feet, was not as tall as he was. But the boogie board that he was on, or a little surfboard, whatever you want to call those things, he was behind there, and all of a sudden I see this little red thing fly over my son's head, and I thought, what is that? And there's a kid behind my son, and in between the waves I saw him going under a few times, and I thought, he's a little too short to be behind my kid, so I better get out there and get after him like now.
WTMJ cares. Salute to service. Don't forget, we're also showing this on WTMJ.com/StudioCam. You can see a live presentation. We have to bring that award out here and hand it off to you in a second here. But before the break, Beth, I was asking you the question, what that felt like that day as you were on that beach watching your husband out there in that water, which was dangerous to the point at one point where he said he was worried about his own drowning because he didn't want to get dragged down. What did that feel like?
It was a surreal experience because I was not concerned about him with the first 2 saves because the children were in water that he was able to manage. He was still standing in the water and it was fine. And he's a strong swimmer, and so I had confidence that he could bring them back. I was more worried about all the rest of the kids that were in the water, feeling like we had to watch them because there were just lots of kids with flotation devices, and the waves were just taking people out. So it was definitely something that made me feel a little anxious, especially seeing Jeff save the first few kids. By the time the last one came along, and I saw that he was struggling out there, that's where I really got scared for him. And I just had to rely on my faith that God would bring him back.
And as a spouse of a firefighter, it's something that you probably have inside you a lot of the time when they're out going on some dangerous calls.
Definitely. When we first got married, he had first started his fire career, and I spent lots of nights home alone while he's on shift, just wondering what's going on, what are they doing? I hope he's being safe. But he would reassure me all the time. We practice very safe procedures and standards, and we know what we're doing. And so over time, you just can't live your life in fear. So I just, I trust that when he goes to work, he's going to be as safe as he possibly can. And there's that level of faith. I have had to rely on my faith a lot in knowing that I can't control anything he's doing and he can't necessarily, so God's got to be there.
That's the voice of Beth Cavett, the spouse of Jeff Cavett, our WTMJ Cares Salute to Service Award winner. So, Jeff, thinking about Salute to Service and just public safety professionals in general, the men and women you work with, talk about that and what it means to you to win an award like this. And you've been honored in many ways by other organizations as well for your story. What does that mean to you?
I'd never really think of myself as a hero. I think of myself as a servant. As I signed up to become a firefighter, I always thought that it'd be great to make an impact on people's lives. I always thought that it'd be great to be able to serve where I can, and if I have the ability to be fit enough and have the mental capacity to stay with this long enough, that it would serve others well as well. And I think that the men and women that I work with in West Allis, I work at Greenfield as well as a fire marshal, I find all of their courage and their consistent attitudes about being that servant as well as I am very refreshing. It's great to see that there's young kids coming in now that are just as excited about going into the streets and doing the job that I did many, many years ago. As a driver, I don't do internal firefighting anymore, but we had a garage fire yesterday, and I talked to a senior fireman, and he had said that it wasn't as hot as he remembers, and it wasn't as tough as it was. But age does take some time on all of us. But I also think that takes a level of courage, and I think that the commitment that these guys go into structure fires still to this day, it's an honor to work with them.
WTMJ Cares Salute to Service, presented by First Bank Financial Center. We are joined by our today's final Salute to Service winner, Jeff Cavett, firefighter from West Allis, his wife Beth, his children Ben, Cameron, Miranda, who's just itching to get on a microphone, and maybe there's a career in broadcasting for her. Before the break, I talked about what all this means. You never really lose your training whether you're on duty or off duty. But for a firefighter like you have some experience. What does all this tell you about your life served?
Well, some of the things that go through my head whenever I'm out in the public, and I think this probably holds true for everybody from police officers, Coast Guardsmen, lifeguards, firefighters, EMTs, I think they don't necessarily look for the opportunity to serve, but I think it's in their blood that they just can find it, and it happens to them. I heard of a guy out in the East Coast that saved a kid from the surf in North Carolina, off-duty firefighter again. So I think that what it does is it gets in your blood, and you just say, I can do this. This is something I'm capable of doing each and every day, whether you're on the clock or not. And
Beth, as a spouse of a firefighter, you saw the story play out. How proud of your husband are you?
Extremely proud. He is an amazing man, and he really does serve. Nothing holds him back when someone needs help.
Salute to Service, WTMJ Cares. It's been an honor to award these fine men and women who serve in public safety. When we think about the job they do and the incredible, even in this case, away from the job, responsibility they have in our community, they don't walk away from it. Personal, professional, the sacrifices they make, training is a big part of it. When you talk about the commitment to community of all the people that live in a community, look at public service and public safety professionals in a different way. They are really stepping up every day. That's why I chose them as the individuals that I wanted to honor as my first WTMJ Cares initiative. And I think it's important to understand, by doing this, I think we can build a better, stronger relationship and maybe build on some of these things in the future. I'm going to continue this program. We'll do it again next year. I want to honor the men and women who are out there doing this job 24/7, 365. Thanks to firefighter Jeff Cavett from the city of West Allis, Beth Cavett, his wife, his kids. You guys were awesome. I know Miranda has a future in broadcasting. She's shaking her head. Just been a great pleasure to unveil these stories as part of WTMJ Cares Salute to Service. We will hand you the award. We'll take some pictures. Thanks to the audience for all the great comments and texts, emails about Salute to Service. It's been a real joy and a pleasure to do this, something I've been looked forward to doing, and just been a thrill to tell the stories in their own voices. Not easy to draw it out of some members of public safety because they don't talk about themselves. They're a humble group, but in all cases, in all of our winners, in all of our nominations, which were more than 40, just great men and women doing great work every day in our community. That's WTMJ Cares Salute to Service.